President threatened protests over alleged neglect by Rivers Flood Committee. Can Islamic Supreme Council disagree over Christian genocide comment by US? FCT minister gives Abuja property owners ultimatum. On the foreign scene, US senators set to end government shutdown. Details of these and more after this break. I'm Ifechukwu Muonyili with the news. Now, the election and victory of Anambra State Governor, Professor Chukwuma will get the news cycle started this morning. Let's begin by telling you that President Bola Tinubu says Governor Soludo's re-election is an affirmation of his visionary leadership and the progress recorded under his administration. President Tinubu commended the people of Anambra, security agencies, and INEC for ensuring a peaceful and credible poll. Also, the president praised Soludo for bringing discipline, transparency, and innovation to governance in the state. The president insists there will be continued collaboration between the federal government and Anambra to sustain development in the region. On Sunday, INEC returning officer and vice chancellor of the University of Benin, Professor Edoga Omorege, announced that Professor Soludo won all the 21 local government areas. Meanwhile, Governor Soludo is grateful to the people of the state for renewing his mandate for another 4 years. Speaking after being declared winner of the November 8th governorship election, Soludo says it is time to get back to work. He adds that governance is a 24/7 task and assures that his administration will continue to deliver on its promise to the people of Anambra. It might interest you to know that Governor Soludo scored a total of 422,664 votes, followed by the All Progressives Congress with 99,449 votes. Paul Chukwuma of YPP came third, with Labour Party's George Mohalo finishing fourth with 10,505 votes. The People's Democratic Party with 1,401 votes trailed behind. Now, while the president has given a pass mark to INEC for the conduct of Saturday's election in Anambra, his party candidate is not there yet. The APC candidate Nicholas Ifechukwu says his party is still studying the outcome of the election before deciding on its next steps. He alleges that his supporters were harassed and prevented from voting by thugs during the poll. However, Ifechukwu commended his supporters for their effort, saying the APC performed creditably despite not engaging in vote buying. To other reactions now. The African Democratic Congress says the Anambra governorship election was marred by widespread vote buying and financial inducement. The party's National Publicity Secretary, Bolaji Abdullahi, accused Governor Soludo of turning the poll into a cash-drenched spectacle that undermines democracy. ADC candidate John Wosu also rejected the outcome, calling it a national embarrassment and a subversion of the people's will. Meanwhile, the Labour Party candidate Dr. George Mohalo rejected the result of the election, alleging that the process was riddled with vote buying and irregularities. He says underage voters were allowed to cast ballot, while in some areas the Labour Party logo was missing from the ballot paper. Mohalo insists the poll fell short of expectations and promises to issue a detailed statement after receiving reports from his agents. In a related story, the EFCC says its operatives have arrested 3 suspected vote buyers during Saturday's Anambra governorship election. The suspect, Emeka Ilukasia, Nwachukwu Loretta, and Ifechukwu were picked up in different parts of the state while voting was still in progress. According to the commission, the arrests were made in Njikoka, Oyi, and Dunukofia local government areas. Well, away from Anambra elections and back here in Rivers State, residents in the Orashi region of Rivers State can now heave a sigh of relief as water levels from the Orashi River begin to recede. Recall that about 2 weeks ago, the river had been rising, raising fears of another round of flooding in the area. The coordinator of the Ngene Flood Disaster Response Organization, Enieta Abieba, confirmed this to correspondent Onyeka Chinwosu and now is calling for support for farmers who already lost crops to the flood.
As the 2025 flood that went a long way to destroying their socio-economic life is now receding. This has provided the opportunity for some victims who fled their homes to return. But the scars of the negative effects of the flood are visibly noticed on the victims. Virtually all farmers in Ngene would wait for a couple of months before going back to the farms for a fresh cultivation. The people are therefore looking up to government and other relevant agencies for aid.
While still on flood issues, officials of Oba Ebrimandoni local government area and Ahuda West local government area say they've received relief items from the State Flood Management and Control Committee. Recall that the committee chairperson and Deputy Governor Professor Ngozi Odo announced last week that perishable and non-perishable goods had been distributed to councils in the Orashi region. She also said the second phase of relief delivery will follow soon. But in Oyibo local government area, residents say they may soon hit the streets in protest over what they call neglect by the State Flood Committee. A stakeholder, Victor Obute, says the people of Oyibo feel abandoned. He accuses the state government of focusing on other flood-prone areas while leaving Oyibo out of flood control and relief effort.
Everything is politics, and it ought not to be so. You don't treat other local governments that have been designated as flood-prone local government. Maybe give them succor. Why you abandon Oyibo local government because it's Oyibo local government? It's annoying. It doesn't make sense. It makes the people feel rejected and abandoned by government. If they continue to sideline us, we will organize for a very massive protest to at least register our displeasure over how they are handling the flood situation.
He says despite several letters to the governor and the flood management committee, Oyibo has not been included in ongoing canal desilting or other support efforts.
I'm a flood victim. I talk based on experience. Now, before now, we have recommended to the State Flood Management Committee headed by the Deputy Governor. We recommended structural and non-structural approach because our flood situation is a flash rain flood, not an overflow from any river. So we've told them, come and desilt drainage systems. If you're giving palliative to other flood-prone local government, don't exonerate Oyibo local government because the impact is real. The people are affected.
We're not done with flood issues. This time, a town planning expert, Njoko Soporuchi, says proper urban planning remains the lasting solution to flooding problems in Rivers State. The former spokesperson of the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners in Rivers told our correspondent that most city neighborhoods still lack proper drainage systems. He was speaking during the World Town Planning Day.
We need to plan the new or the emerging neighborhood. So without proper planning, whereby before we start building, we'll have provision for drainage lines, we'll have provision for power, we'll have provision for roads, we'll have provision for public facilities and utilities. The neighborhood we have in Port Harcourt, the outside G-Line, Dube, Old Port Harcourt, even if they have been bastardized over the years, has no foundation planning-wise. We can come up with plans in the form of urban renewal.
Also, he thanked Governor Fubara for appointing a town planner as permanent secretary in the Ministry of Town Planning, but urged the inclusion of more professionals in the ministry. To other stories now. The Abo Consultative Assembly is calling on the Rivers State government to speed up work on the Wodohia Bridge section of the Port Harcourt Ring Road project, describing it as critical to the safety and connectivity of our communities. The group says the delay, more than 2 years after the project began, has exposed residents to danger along the river crossing. The assembly also urged Governor Siminalayi Fubara to direct the contractor handling the Rumolumeni Bridge on the Trans-Calabari Road project to increase the bridge's height to allow marine vessels to pass freely and protect the marine economy of coastal communities. The group further appealed to the state government to begin work on the proposed Choba flyover, which it says will ease the persistent traffic gridlock in the area, a key gateway in Port Harcourt that hosts the University of Port Harcourt and several major businesses. Reaffirming its loyalty to the FCT Minister, Nyesom Wike, the Assembly rejected the African Democratic Congress in Akpo Kingdom, describing the party as not serving the people's interests. It also encouraged all eligible voters in Akpo Kingdom to take part in the ongoing INEC voter registration exercise ahead of the next general elections. All of these pointers came after a strategic meeting of all 10 Akpo communities, with the resolutions signed by the group's President General, Francis Amadi, Vice President Paddy Wali, and Secretary Michael Ifechukwu. And now stakeholders in Elele Alimini and Moha local government area are commending House of Representatives member Boniface Emerengwa for including the ongoing construction of UBE classroom blocks at Elele Alimini Secondary School in his constituency project. During a courtesy visit led by the paramount ruler Eze Peter Wabara, residents also praised Emerengwa for advocating the establishment of a federal medical center in the community. Wabara expressed hope that the bill to amend the Federal Medical Centers Act to accommodate the proposed center, once passed, will enhance healthcare services and improve constituents' quality of life.
He is the brain behind the bill which seeks to establish the Federal Medical Center in Elele Alimini, using a moribund general hospital that was built in Elele Alimini since 1956 under the then Ahoda County Council in the Eastern Region. And for somebody to take it upon himself, using his legislative position to ensure that that hospital is not only renovated but is upgraded to the status of a Federal Medical Center, I think it's commendable.
The youth president of Elele Alimini also Aso Cletus Ifai described Emerengwa's leadership as people-oriented and lauded his quality representation.
It is obvious that Menengo has been representing us well. That's why we come to thank him very much for personally sponsoring the bees to establish Federal Medical Center in Elele Alimini in name of our local government, and also for being the brain behind the already established government vocational school in Elele Alimini. Menengo is a good man, and he has done well for Elele Alimini people, and we are praying for him to excel more in politics and in public offices.
Before we go on a break, let's inform you that the chairman of Eche Local Government Council, Chima Boniface Njoko, has approved new appointments to key positions within the council. In a statement from his office, Njoko announced Peter Chijoke as secretary of the council and Harry Ume Oporom as supervisor nominee. The statement added that the details of the supervisor nominee have been forwarded to the HA Legislative Council for screening and confirmation. Still to come, we have a comprehensive update and reactions to President Trump's Christian genocide comments about Nigeria. Do stick around for all of it after this break.
Want to
You're welcome back. Now, CAN chairman in Northern State and the FCT, Reverend Joseph Hayab, says decades of persecution in the Christian North now amount to genocide. He also dismissed claims that the killings are mere farmer-herder clashes, insisting they are targeted attacks driven by religious hatred. Speaking on Nigerian for Borderlines, Reverend Hayab, who recounted burying thousands of victims from past religious crises, said the attacks predate Boko Haram's insurgency.
I am not speaking from research or whatever. I'm speaking as a victim. I'm speaking as the pastor who buried almost 2,000 people in 2000 in Kaduna. Quote me, my name is Reverend Hayab. Coining it into the politics of America as if we are not in Nigeria. Sincerely speaking, there has been killings of Christians in northern Nigeria before even the advent of Boko Haram.
On the other hand, security consultant Dr. Kabiru Adamu explained that incidents of religious suppression in Nigeria cut across faith. He urged Nigerians and the international community to treat religious violence as a national concern rather than a political tool.
The report on Nigeria, specifically discussing religious freedom in Nigeria, it did conclude that there was suppression of religious freedom. But then why I referred to that report is it brought out elements of what it called religious suppression, and interestingly recognized the fact that it affects the two dominant faiths in Nigeria.
Well, in a related story, the Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs is urging U.S. President Donald Trump to work with Nigeria in tackling terrorism through intelligence sharing and logistical support. The Council Secretary General, Professor Ishaq Oloyede, made the call at a news conference in Abuja where he criticized Washington's decision to redesignate Nigeria as a country of particular concern. He says the move is politically motivated and undermines genuine partnership, stressing that Nigeria's sovereignty must be respected. Oyede adds that true friendship lies in collaboration, not interference, and appeals to the U.S. to support Nigeria's fight against terrorism with sincerity and mutual respect. But the president of the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, Bishop Wale Oke, says Christians in Nigeria are facing what he calls a genocide, with their patience being stretched by continued attacks. He blames extremist groups like Boko Haram and ISWAP for the killings, noting they misuse religion to justify violence. Bishop Oke also urges President Tinubu to cooperate with U.S. President Donald Trump to tackle terrorism and restore peace. Also, the Olubado of Ibadan, Oba Rashidi Ladoja, who hosted the PFN president, lamented the long years of killings and called for healing within the Christian community. Also, the General Overseer of the Redeemed Christian Church of God, Pastor Enoch Adeboye, wants President Bola Tinubu to end insecurity in the country by giving security chiefs a 90-day deadline to eliminate terrorist groups. Speaking during the RCCG Holy Ghost service, Pastor Adeboye says worsening insecurity must be treated as a national emergency. Responding to recent comments by U.S. President Donald Trump, Pastor Adeboye insists that Nigeria must act decisively to protect its people. Meanwhile, a retired Naval Commodore Promise Daba says those opposing the U.S. government's plan to fight terrorists in Nigeria are likely sympathetic to the groups. Now, Daba, who spoke to correspondent Kachimusu, advises President Tinubu not to repeat the Buhari administration's rejection of America's initial offer to help.
He wrote to Nigerian government. I was in defense headquarters then. I do advise the government that the government should accept the help. There's some supporters of this Islamic group. One of the service chiefs in particular went and advised him he should not accept the offer. And the president turned it down. His Trump has intervened in 2018. This Boko Haram issue has been a thing of the past. And now the man wants to enter. And as they rightly said, as he's telling his defense people to plan, I'm sure he's already ready. And if I were president, to save his face, it's better he will go into alliance. Let Trump now come as a corporation. In 6 months, this Boko Haram will be a thing of past.
He adds that the Nigerian military currently lacks the capacity and morale to defeat Boko Haram, which he describes as one of the most violent and well-funded terror groups in the world.
When we bought 6 Tucano pieces, by the time we acquiring those 6, Niger Republic here already has 1 dozen of Tucano in their inventory. As of 2018, Nigeria does not have MRAP. One brigade of Niger came to come and assist Nigeria. They came with 200 MRAP. So this is just to give a snippet of what it takes to win a war. What we will say, Nigeria, we went to come up, we fought. That time we have a Radu that if you position it in Bonn, you can level Port Harcourt. By that time, we have about 6 missile carrying boats. Aradu was due 3. Nigeria bought 1, UK bought 1, Argentina bought 1. It has the capacity of a division. It fights in the air, on the land, and on the water.
Well, away from that, the palace of Obenema Ibe III, Obogolo Kingdom, has congratulated Honorable Evangelist Hope O. Okiriko on his appointment as chairman of the board of directors of Captain Elechi Amadi Polytechnic, Rumola, Port Harcourt. In a statement, His Majesty King James Roland praised Ikiriko's leadership, integrity, and dedication to public service, highlighting his distinguished tenure in the River State House of Assembly and as chairman of a local government council. The king described the appointment as a well-deserved recognition of Ikiriko's unwavering commitment to development and good governance.
Stay with us.
King Roland and the people of Obogolo Kingdom expressed joy at the achievement, praying for divine wisdom, sound health, and success as Ikiriko assumed his new role. The king also expressed appreciation to the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nsomwike, and the Executive Governor of River States, Amopusenibo Siminalai Fubara, for facilitating the appointment. And now in Abuja, the Minister of the FCT, Nsomwike, has given property owners who converted their land use without approval a 14-day ultimatum to pay a 5 million naira violation fee. The grace period, which began on November 11, requires affected owners to visit the Department of Land Administration with their title documents and valid ID to regularize their land use and obtain updated titles for a fresh 99-year term. Senior Special Assistant to the Minister, Lere Olayenka, warned that failure to comply within the time frame will lead to enforcement action by the FCT administration. In business, the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association has expressed support for the federal government's 15% import tariff on petrol and diesel, saying it will strengthen the naira and attract investment. NECA's Director General Adewale Smart Oyerinde describes the policy as a key step toward protecting local industries and encouraging domestic refining of petroleum products. He adds that the tariff will promote local value addition, conserve foreign exchange, and support Nigeria's industrialization agenda. Oyerinde, however, urges the government to manage the policy carefully to avoid price distortions and ensure it benefits both the economy and consumers. We're going to a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll wrap up the news.
Congrats.
Aimed at ending the country's longest government shutdown. In a Sunday procedural vote, 8 Democrats broke ranks to support the Republican measure, which will keep the government open until January 30th. The bipartisan deal funds certain government programs, including food aid and the legislative branch, but delays a decision on extending healthcare subsidies under the Affordable Care Act until December. And now in sports, Pep Guardiola marked his 1,000th match as a manager with a commanding 3-0 Manchester City win over Liverpool at the Etihad Stadium. Erling Haaland continued his prolific form, scoring his 28th goal of the season for club and country to set City on their way. Nico Gonzalez and man of the match Jeremy Doku scored the other goals. The win takes Man City back to second, cutting Arsenal's lead to just 4 points. Well, that's the news, but before we go, here are the headlines we brought you once again. We brought you various reactions after Governor Soludo win in Anambra governorship election, including President Tinubu's commendations and opposition rejections. You also heard Oyibo residents threaten protests over alleged neglect by Rivers Flood Committee. I told you how religious bodies, the Christian Association of Nigeria and Islamic Supreme Council have disagreed over Christian genocide in Nigeria, comments by the U.S. The news was edited by Ufoma Ibamono. To reach the news team, send an SMS or WhatsApp to 0808-721-7215. I'm Ifechukwu Muonyili. Many thanks for listening.